Imagine standing in front of the man who ordered your execution. He is the most powerful dictator on earth. He has the authority to snap his fingers and have you torn limb from limb. And you are the only person in the room, the only person in the entire empire who has a secret that he desperately wants. You, my friend, have the leverage. You hold the cards. Most of us in that moment would use that leverage to negotiate. Okay, King, I'll tell you the dream. But first, I want a raise. I want a promotion. I want a guarantee of safety. Or we would pump ourselves up. Well, King, since none of your other guys could do it, I guess I'm the smartest guy in the room. Look at me. Daniel does neither. He uses the most dangerous moment of his life to preach a sermon. He looks the dictator in the eye and tells him, your experts are frauds. Your religion is broken, and I am nothing. But there is a God in heaven. He deflects the glory before it can even touch him. And in doing so, he teaches us the most important lesson about spiritual power. The most powerful person in the room is the one who does not need the credit. Hello, and welcome back to Bible Talk. I'm your host, T. I am not a theologian. I'm not a guru. I'm just a woman who wants to know how to walk in the Spirit when the world is walking in the flesh. Today, we are learning the art of spiritual humility. We are looking at the Great Deflection. Please open your Bibles to Daniel chapter 2, verses 24 through 30. I read from the Christian Standard Bible, and we are going to focus specifically on Daniel's opening statement to the king. Arioch has brought him in. He says, I have found a man among the exiles of Judah. Notice how Arioch tries to take some credit too. Nebuchadnezzar looks at Daniel and asks, are you able to make known to me the dream? Now pay attention to the answer. Daniel answered the king, no wise man, medium, magician, or diviner is able to make known to the king the mystery he asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries, and he has let King Nebuchadnezzar know what will happen in the last days. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have more wisdom than anyone living, but in order that the interpretation might be made known to the king. There are two halves to this statement. The negative, what man can't do, and the positive, what God can do. Let's break down the negative first. Daniel starts with a no. No wise man, medium, magician, or diviner is able. Why did he list them? He could have just said, King, humans don't do this. But he gets specific. He lists the job titles of the king's cabinet. He is standing in the throne room, likely surrounded by these very men, or at least their bosses, and he points a finger at them and says, your payroll is bankrupt. Could you just imagine? He is publicly exposing the failure of the Babylonian religious system. He is telling the king, you are right to be angry. These guys are frauds. Their gods are silent. Their magic is a parlor trick. When the real pressure comes, they have nothing. This is incredibly dangerous. Daniel is an outsider. He is a Jewish exile who refuses to assimilate. He is making enemies of the most powerful political caste in Babylon, the Chaldean priesthood. If he is wrong, or the king decides to defend his priests, Daniel is dead. But Daniel isn't playing politics. He's clearing the deck. He has to destroy the king's faith in the counterfeit before he can introduce the king to the real thing. Sometimes you have to have the courage to tell your boss, your family, or your culture, the methods you are using do not work. The experts you are listening to are wrong. You have to expose the lie before you can present the truth. Then comes the pivot, the most important but in the book. But There is a God in heaven. Why is this specific title important? Because the Babylonian gods were territorial gods. Marduk was the god of Babylon. Bel was the god of the land. Nabu was the god of wisdom. They were local. They were gods of the earth or gods of the city. Daniel introduces a new variable. He says, King, you've been dealing with the local gods who live in statues. I represent the God of the heavens. He is introducing a universal sovereign, a God who isn't limited by geography, a God who isn't limited by the flesh, as the magicians admitted in a previous video. This is the moment the atmosphere in the room changes. Nebuchadnezzar thought he was dealing with a Jewish god, a defeated tribal deity. Daniel corrects him. No, I am speaking for the CEO of the universe. When you speak for God, don't shrink him down. Don't make him a religious preference. He is the God of heaven. Now look at verse 30. This is the anti-hero moment. Daniel has a floor. The king is listening. Daniel says, as for me, this mystery has been revealed to me not because I have more wisdom than anyone living. This is the strategy for humility. Why did he say that? Was he just being modest? Was he doing that, oh, shucks, Christian thing? No. This was strategic spiritual warfare. Daniel is protecting himself from being viewed with idolatry. He knew human nature. If he walked in and said, King, I figured it out. I'm a genius! Woo-hoo, woo-woo! What would Nebuchadnezzar do? He would idolize Daniel. In fact, in verse 46, the king tries to worship Daniel anyway. If Daniel took the credit, he would become a god in the king's eyes. And that is a dangerous place to be, because if you accept worship, you fall. God will not share his glory. Daniel deflected the praise so it wouldn't stick to him and rot his soul. If Daniel claimed he was the source of wisdom, I have more wisdom, then the king would expect Daniel to know everything forever. The next time the king lost his keys, he'd call Daniel. The next time the stock market crashed, he'd blame Daniel. By saying, it's not me, it's God, Daniel creates a safety buffer. He says, I'm just the radio. I'm not the signal. If you want the signal, you have to look at God, not me. This is brilliant. It takes the pressure off. You don't have to be the guru. You don't have to be a super Christian. You just have to be a vessel. Not because I have wisdom, but because God wanted you to know. The skeptic would most likely say, okay to you. But let's be real. Daniel was just being politically savvy. He knew that the Chaldean priests were powerful. He humiliated them a little bit, but he deflected to God so he wouldn't look arrogant. It was just smart office politics to avoid a target on his back. Okay. Here's my rebuttal. Actually, what Daniel did was politically suicidal. Think about it. He stood in front of the king and told him that his entire cabinet, the men who run the country, are incompetent. He insulted the most powerful union in Babylon. He alienated the deep state. If he was playing politics, he would have said, King, your wise men worked really hard and we collaborated, and with the help of my God and their gods, we found the answer. He would have built a coalition. He would have shared the credit to make friends. He didn't do that. He isolated himself. He burned the bridge with the Chaldeans. He stood alone with Yahweh. That isn't politics. That, my friend, is dangerous integrity. He cared more about God getting the glory than about making friends with the coworkers. Here is my theological challenge. We live in the age of the influencer. Everyone wants credit. Everyone wants to build their platform. Look at my ministry. Look at my revelation. Look how God uses me. Look at what I've done for work. Look how wonderful I am. Look at how I've described what was happening over here without anybody really knowing. We are obsessed with being the man or woman of God. Daniel proves that the most powerful person in the room is the one who doesn't need the credit. Daniel is following the playbook of Joseph. Remember Genesis 41? Pharaoh said to Joseph, I have heard you can interpret dreams. What did Joseph say? It is not in me. God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer. Both Joseph and Daniel, the two most successful marketplace ministries in the Bible, started their meetings by telling the CEO, I am nothing. God is everything. Here's the challenge. Are you building your brand or are you pointing to the God in heaven? The next time God uses you to solve a problem at work, the next time you give great advice to a friend, the next time you pray for someone and they get healed, will you say, yeah, I'm pretty anointed? Or will you say, but there is a God in heaven? If you take the credit, you take the pressure. If you give the glory, you get the freedom. The introduction is over. Daniel has cleared the room of human pride. The executioner is lowering his sword. The king is leaning in, hanging on every word. The stage is set. Now, Daniel opens his mouth to describe the nightmare. He describes a colossus, a giant statue made of frightening metals that towers over the history of the world. He is about to give us the timeline of human government from 600 BC until the second coming of Christ. Join me next time for The Head of Gold. Here are my 3 questions for you to help build your faith. Number 1, why is it dangerous to take credit for what God reveals? Number 2, do you have the courage to tell your boss or your leader that their secular methods, their wise men, won't work? Or are you afraid to rock the boat? Number 3, are you a medium pointing to yourself or a window pointing to God? Can people see through you to Him? Until next time, you have a blessed day. Bye for now.